Welcome to Martialpreneur TV. It's me, Scott, and we've reached episode 20. And I just wanted to take this landmark occasion just to say thank you. Thank you to all of our viewers, everyone who tunes in and watches the show. It really does mean a lot to me, and it's just great to see the numbers increasing each week, and also getting the feedback from you guys, emails, Facebook, all that sort of thing. Just saying how much of a positive change Martialpreneur TV makes on your business, and also, you just enjoying the show. So thank you again. And on that note, I would like to say an even bigger thank you to our guests, because without them, there'd be no show. And they take the time out of their day to come and talk to me and do these recordings, and they do it free of charge. And it really is refreshing to see that there's ethical professionals in our business arena that are happy to do that and share their knowledge with us. So, again, hats off to our guests of the show. So a big thank you. So to mark this landmark occasion, we have a special guest. We have Mark Dawes. Now, Mark is the director of the National Federation for Personal Safety, and he shares with us, amongst so many other topics that we cover, like we normally do in Martialpreneur TV, but he talks to us about how he went from the forces to developing the National Federation for Personal Safety. And what I like about Mark's story is the fact that it's very much like most of us. We may have been doing something else but wanted to follow our passion. Mark explains he was a very successful computer salesman, but it still wasn't, what he wanted to do. It made him a lot of money, but it wasn't what he loved doing. So, he still wanted to follow that pursuit of martial arts. So he found his niche in the use of force, which he explains in this interview. So I won't tell you too much before we go into it. But also, I find Mark a fascinating character because he's also a master practitioner of Neuro-Linguistic programming, and he's also a certified cognitive hypnotherapist, which means he understands how the mind works, and he gives us some great insights onto the business mindset and how you can use that to your advantage. So without further ado, let's go and see what Mark has to say. Welcome to Martialpreneur TV. We have our guest with us today. We have Mark Dawes. Now, Mark is from the National Federation for Personal Safety. Is that right, Mark?
That's right, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show, Mark. We had a little bit of an issue last time round. We had a chat, didn't we? It was a bit of a technical issue. And yeah. I did say to my subscribers that we were going to have you on, so I did promise them that we are going to do this show, so we finally got you here.
Brilliant, delighted to be here, Scott.
Yeah, thank you very much, thank you. For those of you who don't know about Mark, I thought, Mark, if you could do a little bit of an introduction about your business and a little bit about your own martial arts background, as we're all on Martialpreneur TV. We're all instructors, trainers, something to do with the martial arts world in business. So I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of background about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I started in martial arts a long time ago when I was a kid, really. I mean, my brother used to be a professional boxer. He was quite a bit older than me, so I got taken to the boxing clubs when I was very young. And from there, sort of developed into the martial arts because, I mean, we're talking about the early 70s now when the Bruce Lee films were out, and martial arts were like this strange concept for these strange guys that had mystical powers, and I thought I'd go and do that, really. So I joined a local karate club and an aikido club, and I was just getting, as much as I could, really, because I think, like a lot of people my age, you were inspired by the Bruce Lee films, and Absolutely. You thought there was something mystical and magical about doing this stuff, and that's where it all started. Yep. And then I joined the forces at 16. I joined the Royal Navy, spent 12 years in there, which was great. Spent most of my time working with naval commando squadrons and Royal Marine units and this sort of stuff. And wherever we went, you had a martial art club of sorts, if you like, if you can call it that in the military at the time. So whatever camp you were at, if they had judo, I went to judo. If they had karate, I went to karate, and so on and so forth. So my interest was always there, although it never really was cohesive in terms of a plan. I had no idea what I wanted to do with it. It was very much that I would just do martial arts, really, and that was the long and short of it. And then when I left in 1988, I decided that I would actually pursue it on a more sort of committed basis, really, because I wanted to run my own clubs. And I think, like a lot of guys and girls out there, it's the passion of being an instructor and running your own clubs and doing these things which is really important.
Absolutely.
So I went along the route and got my down grades and everything else, and started training, really. But there was an element of frustration in it for me, and that was, probably coming from a military background. I was looking for, more pragmatic approaches to it, really. And if I'm being honest, and no, I mean no disrespect to anyone out there, because I've changed a lot now. My views have changed. But at the time, as an ex-serviceman, I found a lot of martial arts clubs really were, nothing more than dancing lessons, if I'm being frank. And I really couldn't understand that, and I couldn't get to grips with it. So I was sent off, and I literally was sent off just to train with a guy called John Stedman, because John had a service approach like I had. He trained a lot of guys in the military, and John is a no nonsense, no frills, suffer no fools gladly type of guy.
Right.
And I enjoyed it with him.
Yeah, as I say.
In fact, John and I started NFPS together. We set this up together,
Right.
and we took his expertise off the mat and brought it into the business world. Because, we'll talk about business, as we go on, I'm sure, because I think it's part of the trend of what you want to discuss.
Absolutely.
But I found, really good guys and girls teaching and running clubs, and, very committed, been training for 5, 6, 8, 10, 20 years, but not earning anything. Mm-hmm. Now, at one stage in my new civilian life, I became quite good at selling computers and became the second highest paid consultant in the UK. And that was great. I had a lot of money, but it wasn't my passion.
Right.
And I wanted to know how I could turn my martial arts into a full-time business. But the problem was I ended up subsidising my martial arts, really. And if it hadn't have been for the amount of money I was earning selling computers, I would never run martial arts clubs, because, if you had 10 people turn up and paying then, £2, £3 mat fee,
Yep.
you just about covered your expenses.
Yep.
So I wanted to find a way of turning my vacation, if you like, my hobby into a vocation, into a business. So that was part of the driving sort of thrust of what I wanted to do. And that's when I brought John Stedman off the mat and brought him into the business.
Okay, because myself personally, I teach classes at the moment. I've also taught full time in the past and found it very difficult. It is probably one of the most difficult elements of going from sort of turning your passion into a career, is the sort of making it a full time living. I think majority of people who want to do that is the goal. So how did you make that transition then from then with John, as you said, as a business partner? How did you make that transition into making it a full time career?
Well, we learned by trial and error.
Yeah.
We went out, we put courses on, I spoke at various seminars, I networked extensively, and then I was quite fortunate that the police approached me in West London. Mm-hmm. They said, we're looking for someone to do the physical bit of what we do, and they were looking to run personal safety courses in the community, and they would do all the talking bit. And I thought, well, this is great, the police know everything there is to know about law, naively. So I went and did my, martial arty bit, to teaching the physical self-defence, and they would answer the questions on the law and reasonable force. And I thought this would be a really good opportunity for me to learn. So I went off and did various police courses with them, and I had a brilliant guy, a guy called John Gridley, working with me, who's a lovely, lovely man, and he got me on course at Scotland Yard to understand about crime prevention and how they talked about self-defence, and it was all very good. But one day we ran this course, and it was for a large company in West London, and we'd done the physical bit, and the police officer was asking the questions about reasonable force. And a lady actually asked him straight. She just said, look, without any frills, tell me what it means. Tell me what reasonable means, because all this physical stuff is fantastic. But if I use it, how do I know that I'm doing something that's reasonable? And he actually couldn't answer the question. And I can remember categorically what he said, because he actually said to her, look, if you do something and it goes to court, then a judge or a jury will decide whether what you did was reasonable. And if it's found reasonable, you're fine. But if they think what you did was unreasonable, then you'll be charged. And she said, okay, but what does it mean? And he couldn't answer it. So she turned to me and said, can you tell me? And I was a bit embarrassed and said, no, I don't know. I'm sorry, I have no idea. But I did then make a bit of an arrogant boast, I suppose, at the time, not knowing it. And I said, but when you come back for the second session next week, I'll have an answer for you. And she said, fantastic. And they all left very happy. And after they'd all gone, the police officer turned to me and said, well, I'm looking forward to that. What do you mean? He said, well, I've been doing this for years. He said, we work with lawyers and barristers. They've been doing it for years. They spend years becoming a lawyer and a barrister, and they can't answer this. And how are you going to do it in a week? And I thought, God, yeah, there's a problem. But, I've made a commitment. So in a week, I virtually read everything. I was reading books in the toilet. I was, you name it. I was absorbing, ringing people up, calling people, finding out. And, it was a struggle because I didn't understand legal language to start with. But, I found some stuff out. And it wasn't a lot, but I found some stuff out, and I thought, well, if that makes me better, I'll give it to them. So each week I found something else out and gave them a bit each week over this 6-week course.
Right.
And at the end of it, I actually understood what reasonable force was, and that was a huge shift for us. It was, it was a real good defining moment, because I realised something, and that was, the physical's great. We can all do the physical, or a lot of people can do the physical. It's not that hard. You don't know why you can do it, or when you can do it, or what the law says. Then there's that underpinning uncertainty. And if you can crack that, then people will listen to you. And that became the bulk of our business. And over 23 years now, we've interviewed some of the greatest lawyers on the planet. We spent, I don't even want to go into how much we spent. It cost more than the house on actually getting the research and getting the underpinning knowledge to do this. And then as a result of that, I ended up going onto the expert witness list. And I've now been used in courts and tribunals. I've even been to the Old Bailey at court number 1. To give evidence and testimony and speak to juries about what reasonable force is, how it works, and now we're into all the psychology of how human behaviour and factors come into that as well. So yeah, it's been a good learning curve.
So that's great. I mean, really, you've sort of taken an element from martial arts as a whole, and that's just refined over time, and you've found this pain point really that people were unsure of. I know myself in the past, you sort of. You do get asked those questions, and you're like, what is the answer? And like you say there, you've just researched that and taken that element to the next level, really. So it's fantastic. I know previously I've spoke about on the show about niching down and taking an element into your business and making a specialism in that. So I think you've got a real good example there. It's an absolutely great example of how that happens. So. How then did you build on top of that? Was it because I know with your website, if people visit your website, you've got lots of specific products there. So wasn't that a case of transferring? How did you match the two then, online with the offline training, and how did that work?
Well, you're making me feel old now, Scott, because when I started, there was no online training out there.
Okay.
The internet was just about in its infancy. I think Amstrad had brought one of their first PCs out at the time, which I bought. Yep. But then I had no one to talk to because no one else had one. So a lot of it really was about real networking. It was about going to meetings, about going to community events. It was about writing articles and trying to get them published in local and national press, responding to things in the news. And building, an awareness of what you do. So, a lot of groundwork. And I think that's the bit that it's like, today on these celebrity shows, you get Britain's Got Talent or whatever it's called these days, and you get these people come out there. And don't get me wrong, it's fantastic and it's a brilliant showcase and it gives people an amazing opportunity. But the real people who stay in the industry, in the pop world, are the guys and girls who've actually gone up through the hard way. They've sung in the clubs, they've done their comedy routines in clubs, and have spent years and years and years building it up, and all of a sudden, people think they get to this point where fame reaches them. Well, it doesn't. It's a gradual progression, all the time. And we embraced technology as it came along. I mean, as soon as the internet was available, we embraced it, we utilised it, and I'm pretty sure if there were people like Leonardo da Vinci alive today, or Christ, or the Buddha, they'd be using the internet too, because it's a phenomenal way to spread your message and a way to learn. So it was just getting out there really and doing it. But one of the things, and this is a key point to anyone that's listening to this, if you can solve someone's problem, you're in business. So if people come to you with a problem, if you can resolve that for them and give them an answer, or at least give them a solution, or put them on course to find that solution, then you've got a business. And fundamentally, all we do is solve problems. And that's how it started. For example, that first lady that said, "Can you tell me what reasonable force means?" We've solved that problem and have been doing so for 23 years. And we still do so today. And if you look at our YouTube channel, for example, a lot of the videos up there are responses to questions people have asked us.
Yeah. I think that's the key. Sometimes it's just listening. Sometimes, isn't it? I mean, I think we're all guilty of trying to throw our message out and try and make everyone understand what we want. But sometimes you just got to listen, haven't you, and just see what the issue is there.
I think it's a very valuable point you just touched on, because one of the biggest mistakes in business is that people will develop something that they think people want. Then they spend a lot of time trying to market that and encourage people, if you like, or sell people what they've got. But if you can find something that people want and then respond to that, you've got a ready-made audience. Yeah. So it's changing the whole psychology and the way we think about what we do and how we do it.
Sure. I mean, I know. I don't know if some of our viewers might not know. Some might know. Is you also an expert practitioner in NLP and hypnosis?
Yeah.
So I sort of when we last spoke, yeah, a very, very good chat about sort of the business mindset as well, and going into business, even as martial artists, even if it's a small dojo and you're looking to go professional. I just sort of wanted to, if you could recap on your thoughts on that, because I thought it was very interesting, and also sort of related back to the sort of healthy thinking and the mindset that we chatted about. So I was wondering if you could share your thoughts on that.
Sure. I mean, if you go back to basic martial arts or basic military arts, if you like, there's lots of stuff taught in terms of technique or processes or how to strip a weapon and fire a weapon. But what they know, and the research has been there for hundreds of years, is that 75 to 85% of a person's ability to succeed in a conflict situation is down to their psychology, not to the training, although the training is very important. Now, when we're in business or when we're teaching martial arts, a lot of emphasis is based on what we do on process. And about 85% of that is process driven. So it's technical, it's process driven, it's figuring out how to do something. Mm-hmm. And about 10 or 15% sometimes, if we're lucky, is on developing the psychological side of it. But the psychological side is probably the most important part, because as I've just said, if you're in a gunfight or in a real conflict situation where you have to defend yourself, then 75% of your ability to succeed is based on how you think. And that's exactly the same in business. Mm. There's lots of business seminars out there and lots of stuff on the web. You can go and find these schemes that will tell you that if you buy this product and do this process, you'll get rich. Doesn't necessarily mean it'll happen, or it means you might hit it once but not do it again. So therefore, it's luck more than luck by design. But if you get the psychology right, then you can start doing away with luck. And one of the things that fascinated me about NLP, and the reason I got into NLP, was NLP is based on modelling. So Bandler and Grinder, the developers of NLP, looked at what good people did to get consistent results all the time, and then modelled the psychology of how they did that, extracted that, and then installed it in other people. And then what you had was other people getting consistently good results on a more regular basis by design as opposed to by luck. So I thought, well, it's great. If you can find out how to do this, why wouldn't you? If I can make £1,000 a week every week, by design, why do I want to rely on luck?
Absolutely.
And, and people say, they still say it today to me. They say, "Oh, you're lucky." I'm not lucky. I work hard, and there's a great saying, that luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get lucky if you don't prep. But it's not just about the physical prepping; it's about getting the psychology right. And the reason I got into hypnosis is we're all communicators. Every one of us communicate. We're communicating now over the internet using a phenomenal piece of software and a bit of hardware. And communication is the one medium that we all need. Now, when I was a hostage negotiator, we went on all sorts of courses to learn about this stuff. Right. And it was great academically. It bore the pants off you. I can give you a 4-hour lecture on the drive theory of human behaviour, and it would just serve to send you to sleep. I started looking at hypnosis, and I thought, these guys and girls who do this hypnosis stuff, they can put someone into a trance, and they can make them do stuff. Now, if you've got that ability to communicate, why would you not want that? Mm. Mm. So I started studying hypnosis, and to bring it into the business, really, to help us communicate. And a lot of the products we produce and a lot of the way we deliver our training is based on hypnotic language structures and also on NLP techniques, because that's how people learn. Mm. If you're a trainer, a martial arts teacher, a coach, a business person, whatever, and you want to get the best from your people so they'll come back for more, it has to be important that you know how to communicate to the best effect, surely.
Absolutely.
That's why. Yeah.
Like you say that it's okay knowing everything, but how do you get it out your head to someone else, for them to understand?
Yeah. But you just got to do it, but it's keeping on doing it as well. It's like New Year's resolutions. People say, "Oh, it's New Year, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to stop drinking, I'm going to do this," and they set their resolutions because they have the motivation to do it at the time. Yep. Now, motivation isn't a problem in business. You can get everyone out there to give you motivational talks, and you can get motivational stuff on there, but it's keeping the motivation going. Mm. That's the key.
Being consistent.
Sorry?
Just being consistent, building that consistency each time.
Yeah, and we're habit-performing animals. Human beings are habit-creating animals. And I was recently speaking at a seminar where someone told me it takes 14 weeks to develop a habit. Well, it doesn't. It takes 3. Not 3 weeks. 3 instances to develop a habit.
Right.
For example, we'll do this live, and and we'll just see how this goes.
Yeah.
Humour me, Scott. Yep. J-O-K spells?
Joke.
Got it. Right. P-O-K-E spells?
Poke.
Right. What's the white part of an egg called?
I was going to say that.
Get it? Now, you nearly slipped into it and went, yo.
Yep, almost.
What you've done is I've led you down a path where by the third time, you were just going to, without thinking, respond to that with something that sounded the same.
Yeah.
And this is what advertisers do, by the way. You know, it's how they get you to buy stuff you don't need.
Right.
But within 3 instances, you've got a habit forming.
Yeah.
Now, once in psychology terms, they say once is an accident, twice is a pattern, 3 times you've got a habit. And people are just running on habits. And these habits, if they're functional, great. If they're dysfunctional, not great. And think about this. You know, one thing I tell students when they train with us is and you have to suspend disbelief on this. You know, you've got to just go with this one. If we had a bit of paper, just a normal piece of 80-gram paper that you put in your printer, and it was big enough, and you were able to fold it 50 times, you folded it back on yourself and back on yourself, so each time it doubled in size. At the end of 50 folds of paper, that piece of paper would reach the sun. It would go from planet Earth to the sun.
Right.
Now, when we ask people to tell us how tall they think this thickness of paper will be, they'll say 3 inches, 6 inches, maybe the size of a house. They can't literally envisage that it would reach the sun, which it will. I mean, do the maths, Google it, you'll find this out. Now, no one's ever folded 50 bits of paper so it reaches the sun. It's never been done physically, but mathematically it has. And that's how they get these spacecraft to fly off into different parts of space and land on planets that we don't even know where they are. They use the maths, they use the maths which prove the point. Now, if you take a small child, a child will fall over easily more than 50 times before it takes its first step. But what keeps the child going? It's not motivation. You know, that's the initial thing. It keeps going because it gets the right kind of encouragement. It can see people walking. Mums and dads will encourage the child. They don't say, hey, listen, you've tried 3 times, forget it, you crap, you know, shuffle, you know, your backside for the rest of your life. They're going to encourage that child. But when we get to adulthood, I think we become intellectually stupid and we say, well, we make up rules, you know, 3 strikes and you're out. You know, tried it once, it didn't work, try it twice, didn't work, don't try it again. But successful people do. They'll go more than 3 times, they'll go 50, 100 times, but they'll make changes along the route and they'll make it better along the route. And if you think about it, that's how we as a human race have evolved. So for your business to be organic and to grow, do one thing a day that's going to grow it. Now, it is fair to say that if you're doing something that doesn't work and you keep doing something that doesn't work with as many members as you like, stop it. You know, that's just insanity.
Yep.
You know, and find something that does. But if you did one thing a day, or if everyone out there listening to this did one thing a day in their business for 2 months, 60 days roughly, how much far ahead will they be?
Absolutely. And then building that momentum from that consistency. And like you say, it starts to build a habit then that can form to keep moving you on.
Yeah. And you've got to have this dream. You've got to have this vision in your mind. And we have this in our cultures. You know, people say, oh, well, so-and-so's a dreamer and so-and-so's a visionary, or, you know, they have this big idea. Yeah, live big ideas. You know, go for it. You know, there's an old saying, if you reach for the stars, you know, one thing's for sure, you won't come up with a handful of mud. You know, but there's people out there that will immediately say, it's a waste of time. You know, why bother? You might fail. Some people might fail, but then you try.
We had Jeff Thompson on, I don't know if you're familiar with Jeff Thompson's work, as a guest a few weeks back, and he was saying exactly the same thing. And I think people have got this fear, the sort of mindset of fear that, you know, it tends to be once you finish school, it's like you shut off your mind to you can learn anything more, you know, through the rest of your life. And the fear of failing in front of others and what they'll say and sort of trying to pull you back is a lot of issues with people. And I think, you know, I've even had it myself. You know, you sort of worry about what other people say, and but really you've got to sort of bite the bullet and go, well, look, this is where I want to be. And sort of like, as you say, if you reach your stars, you won't grab a handful of mud. So
as martial artists, we're dealing in an industry where people are going to fail 75 to 85% of the time.
Yeah,
they won't get the hip throw right first time.
Yep.
You know, they won't get the kick or the punch right first time. They're gonna fail 75 to 85% of the time until they get it right. Now, last year, I had the privilege of working with an Olympic athlete that needed some specific coaching, and I brought all this into the fray to look at what we can do for them. You know, Olympic athletes fail 85, 95% of the time. You know, but they don't see it as failure. They see it as something they need to do to progress. Now, the question is, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you attempt? You know, if someone knew they couldn't fail at anything, what would they potentially attempt? Yeah, now, that's a shift in changing the way you think, because if each time you do something, you get a result, and then that result you can do something with, you can change it, delete it, you know, do whatever. You can't fail. The only time we fail, if you like, if you want to use that word, is when we do something and we don't learn from it. And I mean, evolution is based on failure. That's how we develop to be who we are. So failure isn't something to be scared of. And when we run sort of an NLP course or a hypnosis course or a coaching course, we'll say to people, hey, have you ever done this before? And they'll go, no. We'll say, never done this before? No. Okay, so it's all right to make a few mistakes then. And they'll go, yeah. Because if they could get it right, they wouldn't need to be there.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then we tell them, make as many mistakes as you like, but make good mistakes. Don't make bad mistakes, make a good mistake. And the difference between a bad mistake and a good mistake is the way you deal with it. So if you do something and you don't get the output you want, if you go, all right, that's it, I'm used to some crap, I'm never going to succeed, that's a bad mistake. If you say, okay, got that, now I'm not going to do that again, or I'm going to change it, or I'm going to do that, and you reflect on it, then it's a good mistake. But every martial arts teacher out there must be encouraging their students to make good mistakes.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the whole reasons that I put together Martialpreneur TV is the fact that I struggled setting up classes, or setting up martial arts teaching. I sort of fell into the sort of Mac Dojo methods in the early days, and hated it, and it all just went terribly wrong. And since then, I always sort of looked at the successful martial artists and what they're doing and how to do it right. So I thought, and put this show together to help people learn. It's just a step in the right direction, and I think that's from a mistake and from doing things wrong. I thought, well, look, how can I model this? How can we look at what other people are doing? So, don't profess to know everything, but if you try and see what's out there and keep questioning things, I think it's just the way to go.
Absolutely, and look what you've come up with. It's unique. It's brilliant. It's an absolutely phenomenal resource. I mean, when you contacted me, I'd never heard of you. If I'm being honest, I'd never heard of Martialpreneur. But when I googled you and I looked at why you did it, which I think is a story in itself that you should tell people about because it's very inspirational. Yeah. But what you're doing, what a great resource. I mean, if someone's done something, there's footprints, there's a plan in place. And if you follow what someone else has done, that's modelling, and that's what NLP, if you like, is built on. Yep. You're giving people access to people who are successful. Now, the drawback with that is for them is it's free. So they'll say, "Oh, watch it, I won't bother," because we live in a throwaway society where if it's free, people don't put any value on this stuff. That's why libraries are failing. You can go and get a library card for nothing. You can get a book, cost you nothing. You can learn how Richard Branson became successful. You can learn, you can learn how Nelson Mandela survived in prison to become, the president of South Africa. You can learn about how all the successful people have done this. But libraries are failing because it's free. And I think this is a big failing in the martial arts. People are actually giving stuff away for free. Therefore, it has a perceived less than worth value. And people think, well, I'll go or I won't go. I can't be bothered tonight because it's only 2 or 3 quid on the mat. Yeah. Now, I understand why a lot of martial artists do it. It's their passion, it's their love, and there's probably an element of, well, you shouldn't really be charging for this because, I'm doing it because I love it. Listen, do what you love, but charge for it. Yeah. And the simple reason is you're in a business. And if you're not in a business, you won't exist. And then you can't do what you love to help other people grow. So you're caught in this cycle. Charities are businesses. Churches are businesses. Things that we think we shouldn't be charging for are businesses, because in the type of society we live in, if they don't charge or if they don't generate revenue, then they're gone. Then they can't do the good work they do. Lots of martial arts will talk about the Bushido code, or talk about, being like a samurai.
I was going to say, there's this sort of rose-tinted view of the Bushido code in a lot of arts, and all sorts of Asian arts that I think more of the Westerners take on board more than the Asian practitioners do, I think. But
well, it's a different culture. In many parts of Asia, they're surrounded by death every day. Death is not an alien concept to them. It's something you just... it's going to happen. They don't shy away from it. We have this sort of hidden agenda that death's a bad thing, shouldn't talk about it, for example. But if you look at what the samurai were, the samurai were basically highly paid mercenaries. They were the nobility of mercenaries. Most peasants couldn't afford armor. How do you think they got their armor made? They didn't. Someone didn't just say, "Look, I'll make you armor for nothing." They had to pay for this stuff. Samurais were mercenaries. The Bushido code is a warlike code. And if you go into battle, you have to go in to win. You can't go in and not win. And I think that there's a bit of a skewing going on sometimes when we talk about martial arts, where people say, well, it's a martial arts club and we can't charge this and we can't charge that and we shouldn't be doing this, we shouldn't be doing that. Yeah. Well, you mentioned Jeff Thompson. Jeff Thompson charges what he does, and quite rightly so he should. He's bloody good at what he does. Absolutely. And if and this is no disrespect to Jeff. Jeff was a doorman, and he's become one of the most respected guys in the UK in what he does. So there's a route, there's a business plan. Talk to Jeff, find out what he did. We charge. We charge corporately for what we do, and we charge a lot of money for what we do. And the difference is, it's probably, I don't have any special skills. I'm just a normal guy, but the perceived value of what we do makes the impact much, much more professional, and it makes it take it up more. So, it's sometimes looking at what we do and changing it. And okay, there might be 1,000 other clubs out there charging the same. So you think, well, if I charge this £2, £3, £5 mat fee, I'll go out of business. Then give people more value for money. Don't just teach them how to, slap each other around the mat. Teach them how the mind works. Teach them how the body works. Teach them communication skills. Give them qualifications that they can get, that they can go into industry with. So many kids now are leaving school without qualifications, and they caught up in this incestuous negative cycle where, they're told, get your qualifications, you get a job. So they get their qualifications, can't get a job. They then go back and tell the kids at school, listen, don't even bother, because if you get your qualifications, you won't get a job. So now we've got kids at school not even trying. Yet they'll go to a martial art club and they'll listen to the instructor. There's a business there. You can change these kids, and many martial artists do such a phenomenal job. I mean, there's a couple, Mark and Arlene Sproul in Northern Ireland, Newton Stewart. Google these guys. They run a martial arts school dedicated to helping autistic people, but primarily autistic children with autism and ADHD. The social services in Northern Ireland actually refer people to them because of the results they get. And Mark was with me, helping me run a course. Great guy, him and his wife Arlene, great people. And I said to him, why don't you write this down? Why don't other people learn from you? They're getting results and they're getting people referred to them. Very specific at what they do, very unique at what they do. But Mark and Arlene, they're not social psychologists. They're not children behavioural specialists. They're martial artists that are committed to the kids that are in their class. There's so many ways you can cut this, but if you add value, people will pay for value. They won't pay for something that everyone else is doing.
And I think I was speaking to somebody, I can't remember who I was speaking to now, but I was talking to them about, I was relating it to, I think the sort of just teaching mass classes, I think, is a little bit out of the window now for martial artists. But think of yourself more in terms of like an artisan baker, if that makes sense. Sort of artisan baker, yeah. So you're bringing something specialist together, and and you can mould something really good, add extra value, and like you say, with your people perceive that as more valuable, and you can make more money, and your classes can be exceptional rather than just average. You can have better equipment, your marketing campaign's easier, and you can just be and do what you want rather than having to sort of scratch around all the time and just trying to please everyone when you're not going to get anywhere. So I think that's real key is like you say there, those guys in Northern Ireland are just putting together something really special, really exceptional, and it just works better in the community. That's a great philosophy of it. That's how I see things, at the moment when I'm speaking to people who are running classes and clubs and the sort of traditional route. But I mean, Mark,
I think as well, if you're going to do this, be prepared to stand by what you say and do as well. I mean, one of the things that we took on board early on was in the restraint world, in the occupational world where people are taught to restrain people, there's an awful lot of guidance out there by well-meaning organisations and government departments that will tell you what you can't do. So if you say, well, we're going to do this, say you can't do it. And then they say, well, tell me what we can do. And they say, no, we can't tell you that because we could be liable if we tell you, but we're going to tell you what you can't do. So there's a massive information out there about what people can't do. So we started telling people what they could. And it was purely, driven by frustration, but it turned into be a good business decision because if you can solve this problem, people come to you. But then we started to get challenged by these organisations that said, the organisation saying you can't do this will then come and tell us that we couldn't say and tell people what they could do. And we could have backed down because some of these were quite large government departments. And we said, no, if you think we're wrong, take us to court. And that was quite a scary thing to do at one stage. Because we had the might of the government behind this particular government department, and they said, we will. We said, we'll see you in court then. And they said, well, but until we get to court, you must stop telling them this because they're not allowed to do it. And we said, well, no, we won't. We'll continue to do it. And if you actually are that convinced that we're wrong, then, get us arrested, get us charged, and we'll see you in court. And then what we found out, when they started to pick up a bit of momentum, was we found out that it wasn't that we were doing anything wrong. What we were actually saying was right because we had it checked by a very eminent lawyer. It was cutting across what they were saying you couldn't do. And they had people ringing them up and saying, look, these guys are saying you can do this, and you're telling us what we can't do, but they're saying we can. So it was more of an embarrassment on their front than anything else. And you can't prosecute someone for embarrassment.
No, absolutely.
So, when we did this, people then said, oh, well, these are the people to go to if you can't get an answer from the government. So we picked up, a lot of interest in that area as well. But it can be scary. The amount of times I've threatened to be sued by various agencies who said, right, we're going to sue you.
Yep.
And the first time you get it, you think, oh my God, this is scary. I'm going to go to court, with my house, and everything else. And in the end, we just said, yeah, okay, we'll see you in court. If you're that convinced you can win, we'll see you in court.
Just making that stand.
Yeah, and what that transmuted itself into was when we worked with companies, they liked this because they said, listen, you're quite willing to stand your own ground, and if we get a problem and we use your services, will you come to court? And we said, yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll guarantee it. We'll come to court with you, not a problem at all. Mm. And we picked up an awful lot of business because we were willing to go to court, and that's how I've ended up, going to tribunals and going to court and going to the Old Bailey and standing there and saying, yeah, we taught that, and we taught that because legally we can do this, health and safety wise it fits this, psychology wise this is why it works and then why that wouldn't. And explaining it all in a very objective way. And in all these years, doesn't mean I won't, but in all these years we haven't lost a case.
Fantastic.
Doesn't mean we won't, but up to now we haven't, because we reinvest. But it's not about reinvesting in us. It's about reinvesting in the people we train. Because when we train someone, they might be new on the block, they might be scared of all this stuff, and say, look, stick with what we do, follow the route map. We've done it for 23 years, and if you get challenged, we'll stand up for you.
Yeah. What's the sort of most common groups that you do training with, Mark? What's the sort of key people that you work with?
There is no common group with us. We've trained staff who work with children with autism and ADHD. We work with people who work with the elderly, with adults with learning disabilities. We work with security teams, with the NHS teams, with secure teams, mental health teams. We've had police officers and prison officers come and train with us. A lot of them leaving the services who don't have qualifications will come over and get the qualifications through us because we'll look after them. We've even had members of the SAS come and train with us. And one guy in particular who stormed the Iranian embassy in the 1980s came and trained with us to get qualified. And what was interesting was he was sat beside one of the girls around a care home, and she was helping him get through the course. And no ego involved at all. Really, really nice guy. Lovely.
Lots of people from all different backgrounds for your training and.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think this is another important thing. Don't pigeonhole yourself into being, you're the expert or you're the person that only does that system. Mm. Now, in martial arts as well, people are very loyal to their senses. They're loyal to their system, and that's fantastic. But you said it earlier on. No one person has all the answers.
No.
If I need my accounts doing, I get an accountant. Mm. I don't do accounts. Not my thing. Send me to sleep. I can't do it. So I bring an accountant in.
Absolutely.
If I need internet stuff done, I bring the internet guys in. Using the right people to do the right things and not trying to be a master of all trades, because it's just like, it will drive you into the ground. It really will. So get other people in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice, Mark. I could talk to you literally for hours, Mark. You've got so much interesting insights into stuff, and I think it's one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on, because you're a great guy. You've got such a good wealth of knowledge, and what you're doing with your business is great. I think there's lots of great information. You also got a BTEC self-defense qualification as well. Your company offers. Yeah. So I really recommend people check that out. I was actually speaking to another guy earlier, and he's actually done your course and actually said it was very good. So it's can you tell us where we can find more information about you?
Yeah, sure. Our website is nfps.info. So if you put in www.nfps.info, where the website will pop up. We have a YouTube channel. I think there's over 100 videos on the channel at the moment on lots of different things, and lots of them is free information. And that's on youtube.com/NFPS Limited, I think. Don't hold me to that.
I'll search all of these out and put the links up for you. So
I appreciate that. We have a Facebook page up there with a growing Facebook community there. So, there's a huge social media presence. Right. We're blogging all the time, and pick the phone up, guys. We're still old-fashioned. We like to talk to people on the phone, so we're not hidden behind
why not? We forget about that angle.
Pick the phone up. Skype now. We get people Skyping us from around the world. We have guys working out in Hong Kong and the Middle East, all over the place. They Skype us regularly. We do coaching sessions over the air. You can get hold of me any way you like. And if any of you want to do so, you'd be more than welcome.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'll just remind everyone, if you do have questions on this episode or any of the other episodes that we do for our guests, give us a shout and I'll get in touch with Mark, and perhaps you come back on and answer some questions if anyone does have any.
Yeah, love to, Scott. Absolutely.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Mark, it's been a pleasure. And, like I say, really appreciate you taking the time out and coming on the show. And, if we get any questions, I'd love to have you back on.
Mate, my pleasure, Vincent. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you very much,
Scott.
Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.